Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to associate myself with many of the comments I heard from my colleagues, and it's very interesting to hear how we discuss this topic. It seems as though there's a category for women and there's a category for minorities. There's also the intersection of women who are minorities. And I think we need to be very conscious of that as we speak and as we look at how we promote. One of the sentiments that I'm really picking up from this hearing is somewhat of the same old, same old. Being a woman in a non-traditional position myself, I just seem to hear the same commentary over and over, and maybe I'm hypersensitive, Mr. Chairman, but it just appears that way. And one of the things that concerns me, that as a relatively new agency, Homeland Security has a golden opportunity to recreate itself, to really step out of the box, if you will, to create a new culture, a culture of productivity and promotion, one that mentors new employees, as opposed to the same old, same old. And I know that when you're dealing with law enforcement, there's oftentimes the sort of paramilitary setup that we're accustomed to, because again, we're all kind of conditioned around the same old, male-dominated institution building. I'd like to raise a couple of questions. One, Deputy Secretary Lutz, about the Diversity Council. And I've looked at all of the strategic planning, all of the 120-day plans, but what makes that process new and different and not the same old bureaucratic, let's do a timeline, it just seems like we're creating more bureaucracy to do something that's very fundamental and very specific. What is the practical application of the outcomes of a diversity council? And I'd like to open that up to the other panelists to speak to.
Thank you for that, Congresswoman. I think it would be fair to say that Secretary Napolitano could not have been clearer in her instructions to me. She and I represent two women, the only two women who are at the head of a major federal department, third largest in the United States government. If the culture doesn't change under our watch, shame on us. And she could not have been clearer to me in how she intends to create a culture of excitement, create a culture that is truly different, and capitalizes on the very deep commitment that every single man and woman who works in Homeland Security feels for the job that they have chosen to do. We want to build on that. We want to be a place that innovates, a place that welcomes, a place that is open, a place that marshals the very best expertise. Neither the Secretary nor I believe that if you emphasize diversity, you are somehow sacrificing quality. Nothing could be further from the truth, and in fact, it's insulting to think that somehow you're sacrificing standards of performance because you're looking for diversity of perspective, diversity of input, and reflecting the interaction that we have with the American public. The Secretary does herself engage me on this issue every week. She asks me how we are doing. The Diversity Council is something that I am taking a personal interest in. Our outreach to veterans is something I'm taking a personal interest in. The climate that women have to operate in our department is something I take a personal interest in. And so I'm like you. I've been around a long time. So many of the words have already been said. It's time for deeds.
I would just say that, when you have leadership that's committed to something, like making a workforce diverse, it gets done. And I think what we're seeing now, we're seeing a president who's saying this is important to me. We're seeing the appointees that he's putting in charge of different agencies saying it's important to me. And I think we're gonna see a difference, but it has to come from leadership. If leadership doesn't say this is important to me, and oh, by the way, I'm measuring your performance and your success on how you accomplish these goals, then it doesn't happen. But if leadership is saying it, that's when you see it happen. Good agencies that are good on this issue are good because someone at the very top said, this is important to me and I want you to get it done. And it's not rocket science. It's going out and recruiting people and hiring them when you have an applicant pool that is diverse.
I would just simply say it would be another mechanism for discussing these kind of issues in DHS and potentially identifying issues, potentially perhaps identifying triggers, but bringing them to the attention of management so that they could be discussed and thoroughly analyzed through the MD 715 process and other internal decision-making and discussion processes at DHS.
Secretary Lute, are all of the employees in the Department of Homeland Security aware that there's an emphasis on the diversity of the workforce? Has that been something that has permeated all of the ranks? Has there been a discussion with all of the employees about promotion and mentoring? Is there that sort of conversation taking place within the agency, or is this something that management is doing in isolation of the rank and file who are there? Do they understand the value of it? Is that a discussion that takes place?
I would say the answer to that is not yet. The message has not fully filtered down. But it's something that we take very seriously as a leadership responsibility, but the rank and file are a rich source of ideas, of input, and of energy into changing this culture that we have. Again, we want to be a department that's at the leading edge of best practice in this area.
Mr. Chairman, I know my time is up. I would just suggest to you that informing the workforce of the goals that you're trying to set may help in terms of changing that culture. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.